Subscribe to the Hit That Line Podcast Network, brought to you by Breeden RV Center. Breeden RV Center, family owned and operated, a no-pressure, laid-back atmosphere, and always home of the free maintenance for life.
Y'all better put him in the Heisman. Got that wood right here, baby.
This is the Bud Light Seltzer Morning Rush Podcast. Bud Light Seltzer, for those anytime easy drinking occasions.
I enjoy hearing you every morning.
Your mom is so fat when she wears heels, she strikes oil.
Them hogs, man, them hogs can't do no wrong, fella.
Have you ever slapped a bag, Tommy?
I'll be totally honest. I'm the head coach at Arkansas. There's not many bad days, and I mean that. So honored to be the coach. I really am. I don't know if, I went for it on 4th and 2, and we didn't make it against Rice. I probably wasn't in the best mood at that point. And if we have to burn a timeout coming off the sideline, that kind of irritates me a little bit too. But other than that, not a whole lot gets to me.
Sam Pittman seemed happy yesterday following the 40-21 win over the weekend against Texas. Got a chance to catch up with him. 12 o'clock. You can find that interview on hitthatline.com, our YouTube channel as well. I know Clay Henry is really excited to join us this morning at 7 o'clock, the publisher of Hogs Illustrated. He had me pick out a certain song to play for y'all that I know that y'all will be happy to hear when he joins us later on. We're going to stay on this Texas win. We're going to wait a little bit, not move on to Georgia Southern just yet. I did cut a funny soundbite from Nick Saban that I had to bleep out a few things when he talked about Georgia Southern a few years back that I think you guys will find entertaining. And as we're off and running here on a Toyota Tuesday, still happy, still soaking in the win on Saturday night against the Texas Longhorns.
Yeah, still in the afterglow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Honeymoon's not. I think afterglow is the right phrase for this. And I'm glad we're going to get to do that with Clay. And as we talked about from the outset yesterday, boy, it's a good week to have Georgia Southern on the schedule because you need an opponent like this to probably get over such an emotional big win for the program. And everyone, everywhere I went, this was the conversation yesterday, but B, I think it's kind of what Clay wrote about. This game really educated, made aware, however you want to describe what Arkansas, Texas means to a whole generation of people, probably 30 and under, that really didn't know what it was because they hadn't really experienced it. And they certainly hadn't experienced it in Fayetteville because it's been, 17 years.
Oh,
so, I think to the date even. So, I thought that, everywhere I went, that's what people wanted to talk about, was the game, the atmosphere, and then how they're, just like me, my son went, or their grandkids went, or just the idea of the Texas hatred being renewed. I've never seen so much celebration, so much celebration for hatred in a long time.
I was walking into the gym yesterday, and one of the guys that works there is a big-time Texas fan, and he sees me walk in, and I smile, and I didn't want to be overly braggadocious or overly cocky because that's reserved for the Texas Longhorns, and I went up to him, we just started chatting a little bit. He said, y'all gave it to us. Yeah. It was a great game. You put, and he was not being condescending. He was not being over the top. He was just straight up. And then, Gary and Fort Smith, who loves to call in this program and several of our ESPN Arkansas programs, walked in and he started messing with that Texas fan a little bit. But I think there was two ways Texas fans took it. Some took it as, well, we didn't really want it that much. You guys care way too much, blah, blah, the typical Texas fan. And then there was a select few that I will say, and again, it's very select few that took it on the chin, and they were honest and upfront, said, we're not ready for the SEC. You guys kicked our butts, whipped our tails, and I appreciated talking to those. But again, it was a very select few because we know that Texas fans, it's very hard to compute them actually taking losses respectfully.
I didn't hear Sark say it, but I read Sam Conn Jr.'s quotes of what Steve Sarkisian said after the game, that he really said it's more about how we didn't play, more or less, than the way Arkansas played. Now, he didn't seem to, from that quote at least that I read, didn't give Arkansas a lot of credit. And I know those bums that were sitting behind me that had burnt orange on, they didn't want to credit Arkansas at all. But by the end, by the late fourth quarter, as we saw what was unfolding and just the physical mashing of the Longhorns, there was no doubt about what was happening on that field. I thought some of the memes, there was an SEC short video out yesterday that was hilarious. A lot of the internet reaction to Arkansas's win over Texas was pretty hilarious.
The entire
too.
United States loved that Arkansas whooped their butts.
Now, who likes Texas? Other than Longhorns, the people in Texas don't like Texas other than Texas fans.
Exactly.
I mean, who likes Texas?
There were so many people, so many college football fans, writers, analysts that enjoyed the display that you put on that field Saturday night, because Texas, again, is the enemy not just of Texas, the state, but the United States for the most part. It's fun. They are the Empire. They are the Darth Vader. They are the galactic bad people, basically. And Arkansas, again, was the Luke Skywalker, or I'm trying to think of some, y'all help me out with some
heroes.
Yeah, some heroes.
Who rides in. And
David. I'm trying to think of some. I don't know why I'm usually pretty decent with movie references, like good versus bad, but I can't seem to string together any this morning. But that's what was cool about that win, is not only did the entire state celebrate, the entire nation celebrated it. It's because it's the manner and the former fashion of which you kick their butts.
But, this is exactly why, as I was talking about at the outset of this, it's so well placed to have Georgia Southern on your schedule this week. Think if you had to roll right back in and just say it was Mississippi State or Tennessee, or, I think Ole Miss is on a different shelf than those guys this year, but just based on ranking. Just think if you were playing an unranked SEC opponent, you'd be ripe this week. You'd be ripe for the hangover loss.
Yep.
So, I'm fully expecting a sluggish first half. Arkansas maybe to come out of the gate. I hope I'm wrong about that. I hope Arkansas, manhandles them the first and second quarter. And that'll be a testament to this coaching staff if they do. But I think we all need to be prepared and not lose our minds this week when the first quarter or quarter and a half doesn't look quite the way it looked against Texas.
Started either as 18 or 19-point favorites. That line's moved to, I think, 23.5 for the Arkansas Razorbacks.
All of it going one way.
Yeah, so here's what I would say about that. Coach Sam Pittman, not just yesterday, but also echoed the same statement Saturday night. Didn't go to bed till 4:30 on Saturday night. Which
think he had any cold beers?
Yeah, he said they had some people over, so I think there was a little bit of celebration. I think Hunter might have stopped by, and they had a little fun that night. But he said he woke up the next morning, and I think they had a meeting at 9 the next day, or they were eating with recruits. I think breakfast is what, if I remember him correctly saying that during the press conference. But you have to. The good thing about Georgia Southern placing in your schedule, because we discussed it a little bit yesterday, then you go A&M, Georgia, Ole Miss, Auburn. Ranked. Mm-hmm. That's what your schedule looks like. So not only is it a good placeholder following an emotional win, it's also a good placeholder the fact that you play 4 straight ranked teams after this week. And you get Texas A&M. We'll talk about this. Haynes King out. Will not play against Arkansas. He's got
surgery yesterday.
Yeah, I've seen 2 things. I've seen a fractured ankle and I've seen a broken leg. Which is it? I've seen 2.
Well, I guess they're both correct, right? Because your ankle's part of your leg. So if you have a fractured bone, it technically is a break.
Part of your leg.
But he's expected to be back late October, like a 6-week injury from we've seen this before where they've had to go in and put a screw in or something in an ankle. And so I think technically they're both correct, but I think fractured ankle is probably more specific.
And the reason I bring that up, and we'll talk about it more in our SEC update, but if you watch the Colorado Texas A&M game, Zach Calzada, who will look better, I think, against New Mexico and against Arkansas, did not look good in that ball game. Less than 50%. We'll see if Jimbo can shore him up by the time they play Arkansas.
We'll get into this with Clay in about an hour or so, but how many snaps do you think he's gotten compared to Haynes King trying to get a young quarterback ready to be the starter? So he starts getting all the practice reps, he'll start looking better pretty quick.
It's that time of the year again, and all eyes are now turning to football as teams are back on the gridiron to start the football season. As always, BetOnline is your #1 spot for all of the pro and college football action this season. Get all of the updated odds, props, and contests, including the online's biggest $500,000 NFL mega contest, the world's largest 200,000 NFL Survivor contest, open now at BetOnline. Here's what you have to do. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 100% welcome bonus. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts.
First, we're going to welcome in David in South Arkansas. David, I was talking to my buddy who's going to be coming to the Kansas City Chiefs game with us in the upcoming weeks. We're really excited. Also excited for this upcoming Arkansas-Georgia Southern game this weekend, man.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it as well, definitely. But I did have a question about the officiating, or the announcers actually, for the game Saturday night. I know with all the bazillion targeting calls from the first weekend, it almost felt like the announcers were trying to create targeting calls during the game. There was a review, I forget exactly what the play the refs were reviewing, but the announcers, and Arkansas was on defense, the announcers were like, well, that's targeting. Well, that should be reviewed for targeting. Let's get our officials expert in here. Do you think they're reviewed for targeting? And there was no penalty. There was nothing by the refs to indicate targeting. They were reviewing, I don't know, placement, possible fumble. I forget exactly what.
It's a play at the goal line.
And I was just, okay. And was that the fumble thing?
No, it was Casey Thompson on 4th and goal, rolling out and scrambling and ending up in the end zone. And you said it was Jackson Woodard?
Jackson Woodard. There was 2 plays. There was one with Henry, and then the one you're referring to was Jackson Woodard came over and lowered his helmet, and there was crown of the helmet to the ear hole of Thompson.
Yeah. And I know y'all have discussed, and everybody and their brother has discussed about, the running back is down about 2 feet off the ground, it seems like, with his head down. And I don't know. I don't know about targeting and pass interference and all these subjective calls, it seems. But my problem was the announcers. It's almost like they were trying to create a situation. Of course, I'm biased. I want biased announcers, pure Razorback and Chiefs announcers, who would just say, no, that wasn't targeting. That was just a good defensive play. Get the game going, guys, blah, blah, blah.
Well, David, David, what did you see on that play? What did you see Woodard do on that play?
I saw everybody lower their heads, just it seems like on every play, it seems like. And you see a running back come through on 3rd and 1, he's down knee level, it seems like. And everybody needs to be taught, running backs, everybody, keep your head up, because the defensive guy gets called and the offensive guy lowers his head and plows in. And everybody just needs to be taught head up, eyes up, wrap up, look up, just that key word, up, up.
Yeah.
And it's bizarre. It really is. It's just one of those things. Sometimes it'll get called. I know sometimes it won't. And it could be targeting. It could not be targeting. It could be pass interference. Like I was watching the game last night, the announcers, well, that's just good hand checking by both players. Well, okay, they let that go. And then they'll barely touch somebody and call, illegal contact or defensive holding, or Michael Irvin perfected the shove every time and never got called for offensive interference. Yeah. I would hate to be an official. I really would. Like you said before, half the people love it, half the people hate it. And I'll be honest, I don't know why guys do it. I don't care if it's baseball, basketball, whatever. I commend the officials. They have an extremely difficult job. They're out there, 70,000 people screaming at them, saying God knows what, especially in basketball, where you're a lot closer. But it's a tough job. It really is. I respect them. I commend them. Just a difficult thing. All right. Oh, thanks, guys. Oh, and go Chiefs!
Go Chiefs. Big game Sunday night against the Baltimore Ravens. And Drew, I purposely did not make you pull the audio of how the Ravens game concluded last night.
I appreciate that.
Either one of y'all stay up for the end of that?
I watched until the end of the 4th quarter, turned the TV off, fell asleep.
I woke up to it, and my thought process was, Drew, my roommate, big-time Ravens fan, is going to be really happy. They were watching it together last night. I heard some yells, I heard some screams as I went to bed, and I was like, they're going to be in a good mood tomorrow. Wake up, pop it on YouTube, Derek Carr game-winning touchdown in OT to Zay Jones. Right. And I was like, Drew's not going to be happy. I'm not going to make him pull that audio this morning.
That was late into overtime, like 4 minutes left in overtime. So, I had gotten home and saw the end of regulation, and then fell asleep and woke up to the roar of, and the TV was still on, to the roar of the game being over, and saw the replay of it, and then went back to sleep. So I kind of went to bed with that memory in mind. But that was a tremendous Monday night game to kick off Monday Night Football.
Set the tone for hopefully what could be a good Monday Night
because
Football.
Monday Night Football games have not been great as of late.
I pinpoint, and everyone has their favorite game. Some people like the 3 o'clock on CBS or Fox. My favorite game every single week is Sunday Night Football. Al Michaels, Chris Collinsworth, the slide. This week again, it's your Ravens, Drew, against the Kansas City Chiefs. And I know how many Chiefs fans are listening, including David in South Arkansas, so it's not only close to home here, but it's just going to be a good football game between Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. I enjoy Sunday Night Football. Didn't really have a great matchup against the Bears and the Rams. The Bears got their tails between their legs, and I don't know what Matt Nagy's going to do with Justin Fields because he had a touchdown in that game, and they're still going back and forth, but typically Sunday Night Football is the best. Now, your headlines this morning. USC has fired Clay Helton 2 games into the season. They lost by 14 at home to an unranked Stanford. And there was a lot of people speculating that this would be his final go as the Trojans head coach. Well, now it's official.
And, here's my question. If you weren't all in on this guy, if you weren't all in on Helton going into this year, why did you not make a change in the offseason? And now you're 2 games into the year and you're pulling the plug. I mean, to me, this just creates more instability. And I know you're signaling now that, hey, this job's open and we're going to begin looking and, we're going to find a USC man. But clearly, Ty, they weren't in on Clay Helton. They weren't fully committed to him from the end of last year. So I just don't understand why you do it so early into this year unless something behind the scenes that we don't know about changed. Because this, to me, does not make good management sense from the university side.
I don't think it does either, but that's the biggest college football news that came out of yesterday. Also, Jim Harbaugh had this fantastic quote. He talked about how some people run, some people pass. He said some, like George Patton, get their job done on the ground. Others, like Neil Armstrong, get their job done in the air. And Harbaugh said they chose the ground on Saturday, mission accomplished. So I guess the correlation would be Arkansas played more like George Patton.
George Patton, yeah.
On Saturday.
Well, I mean, you can count on him for a squirrely quote of some side.
Of some sort. Now, we all enjoyed the Field of Dreams game between the Chicago White Sox and the New York Yankees out there in Iowa. The NBA is exploring this in some way, shape, or form. Now, I think the most pure basketball movie has to be Hoosiers, correct?
If you're trying to correlate something similar to Field of Dreams, yes.
Yes, if I had to pick out something. So that being said, they're wanting to do a game outside. I think doing it in like Rucker Park or what's the Cali courts? You know what the Cali courts are called? Nope. Okay. Well, they're looking at outdoor places. Now we have seen the aircraft carriers with the college game in those different classics, which we
did they
really
ever
enjoyed.
actually play that game on the aircraft carrier?
They played it before.
I know they tried to.
They played it before. Now there was that year you talked about a couple weeks ago that was canceled because of the perspiration or whatever. But I just think this idea of the NBA exploring this would be awesome, like outdoor. Or
Picture
like
says Venice Beach.
Venice Beach.
That's
Okay. That sounds right, but because I think like Rucker Park and it's wherever white men can't jump and Woody Harrelson and not Kimbo Slice, but what's the co-actor's name?
Snipes.
Wesley Snipes. Yeah, playing. I think that's where they play in those baskets. But I just think that idea is cool to do an outdoor venue or a really small compact venue like Hinkle Fieldhouse.
Right. Because if you were going to do something kind of along the lines of Field of Dreams, it'd have to be, where they played, and that venue has been remodeled and changed so much it doesn't have the same look or feel of, what you saw with the Field of Dreams with the corn outfield. I mean, you just can't, and you can't go back and I think reconstruct that for a single game. So I don't know what else would be that iconic and that vision that comes to mind, because I think we all agree it's Hoosiers is the movie. That's the moment. Both of those movies came out relatively close in the same time frame, so both in the 80s.
Yeah, I think that would be something that they'll at least keep. And by the way, Arkansas winning against Texas A&M to go to the Sweet 16 and Texas Tech, and Chris Beard was special. To do it in the Hinkle Fieldhouse, got a chance to walk around that arena. You had Chuck Barrett, Matt Zimmerman up there in the corner slot. It was just I know only 25% of the stadium was filled in the arena, but it was a special moment to see it in that venue, how it played out. Okay,
so we saw it as a TV stage. I mean, us at home, you were there. Did it look anything at all like the movie Hoosiers to you?
It's as you mentioned, it's revamped a lot.
Right. So did they even turn the court a different direction, or am I wrong on that?
I don't know about that. I just know
from the outside it looks, but the outside of it in the movie isn't really on display.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you could go play there.
Different color because it's blue and white.
You could play there, but I don't think it has the same visual effect as what you had with Field of Dreams, the Field of Dreams game. Even though that wasn't on the actual field the movie was on, it was on a field next to it, but in the same location. I don't know that you achieve what you're trying to do. I commend them for trying to think this out and figure it out, and maybe they will, but I don't know that that's going to have the effect they're looking for.
Last headline before we get back into some Razorback football conversation, getting some text from Clay Henry as we speak. A Brazilian lingerie model is preaching self-love and married herself. Chris Galeria, who is an influencer in Brazil, married herself outside of a Catholic church in Sao Paulo in the name of self-love. Your thoughts on that?
Just her decision. My first thought was, when will you do this? So
the self-love,
in the name of self-love, yeah.
I only have enough self-love for my personality. It's a good thing that I'm not good looking, because I think my ego would explode to heights that it doesn't ever need to get to. And the good thing about that as well is, I think Drew, Tommy, and me can all attest to this, is none of us have been blessed with the George Clooney.
Speak for yourself.
Start
yeah.
saying,
gorgeous.
I'm trying to think of like actors, the Pierce Brosnan, like
I'm Brad Pitt, man.
The
Tom
Brad
Cruise
Pitt,
over here,
the classic male good looks, and so we know that people genuinely like us, not just because of how we look.
Right.
We see past it, because there's certain people that skate by life, and the only reason that people hang around them, and it applies for both guys and girls, is because they're good looking, and they have nothing to offer from a personality, from a friendship standpoint. And the great thing about us is we have so much to offer outside of our just normal awkward appearance.
Drew, isn't it great? We got both. I mean, isn't that awesome?
It's so nice. So basically what you're saying, just like my mom says, I have the face for radio.
Yeah.
You're basically saying
my friends tell me that every single week. Man, Ty, aren't you so glad you have a face for radio?
Hopefully I'm never single and have you set me up on a blind date. Oh, what's the guy look like? He's got a great personality.
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to say. Well, you don't want to be vapid.
Yeah, but everybody knows what great personality means. They're ugly.
You don't want to be vapid. You don't want to be perceived as just a shell or just a pretty face, or you want to be much more than that, correct? And so,
but being pretty also would be nice.
It would be nice. So I wish that that I had a better looking makeup like Zach Morris and Saved by the Bell or something like that. But you know what? I've been blessed with what God. I do have good hair, and girls have told me I have pretty eyes, but outside of that, nothing much to offer. So
someday you'll get old like me, and you'll realize all that doesn't mean as much as you think it does.
Exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't, because you can get through life without being just a drop dead, decent looking man.
Yeah. Good thing me and Drew got both, right?
Exactly.
We just go back to that. We just keep saying it until we convince ourselves of it. Hey, get by and see our friends at Arts Barbecue. Not only do they have great brisket, and they kind of changed up the way they're doing the brisket, and I really like it. The ribs have been really on point. But if you haven't tried this new fried chicken sandwich, Ty and I love it. I mean, because
fantastic.
They take a honking piece of chicken breast, they bread it, they fry it, and then they put it on a bun, and it overlaps the bun. This thing hangs out on all sides. So you go to the big National Chicken store, and you sit in line, and you go, that chicken doesn't even fill up the bun. Not at Arts. No, sir. That chicken overhangs the bun on all four sides on a round bun. Now, you go figure that one out for yourself. Then they put the kickin' chicken sauce on it, the pickles, and then a side of your choice. I'd get the fresh cut fries or the onion rings, but you do what you want. Any of the sides are great. And I think you're going to like this all new fried chicken sandwich. It's available now for a limited time at Arts, and that kickin' chicken sauce is the real deal. It's the fried chicken sandwich now available at Arts, Rogers Avenue, next to Buddy's in Fort Smith.
Probably got about 10 or so texts yesterday asking about the status of Grant Morgan. Sam Pittman, during his press conference, which you can find at hitthatline.com, our YouTube channel as well, told us right now he's day to day. Hopefully we'll get some more update about what that means from Clay Henry coming up.
And I don't know any more than this. Only thing I know is you saw him in videos following the game out on the field, and he didn't look to, be in a splint, in a cast, or anything else. He was hugging his wife. We saw him hug Coach Pittman in the locker room. So all of that's got to be a good sign, right?
I would think so.
So I mean, that's the only analysis I got on it.
I think that's a good way to look at it. You know what's a bummer?
And I don't think if he's got any limitations, play him a very limited amount of time this week. Hopefully, maybe you could just sit him a great portion of this game. But I think he's probably he's a captain, he's a player, and he wants to play. If he can get out there, let him play a little bit, then I'd rest him.
Shannon Rogers brings this up, and I was thinking about this directly following the Arkansas-Texas game, that atmosphere, what you brought as a fan base into that game. He says, how fun would it be to play A&M in Fayetteville next week, but it has to be played in Dallas. Now, I know Jerry, who was there in attendance for the Texas game and is going to be in attendance for the Arkansas A&M game in his home stadium, is ecstatic to have his guys playing. But I truly believe, not to say that they can't win in Dallas, because I think they very much can, but Tommy, I truly believe Arkansas would win that A&M game going away if they played in Razorback Stadium next week.
Well, I think the atmosphere would rival what we saw last week, maybe even exceed it.
I would, and that's because they got that win against Texas, Tommy, and it's weird saying that for all of you listening that hate Texas more than you do A&M, but I was talking with a Morning Rush listener who was 67 years old yesterday, and he was telling me, he said, Ty, you have that same hate for Texas A&M that I do for Texas. And I was like, you're right, because all I've seen is Texas A&M beat Arkansas outside of 2009, 2010, and 2011. And so if that game, Tommy, if that game was allowed to be played in Fayetteville, if they had done that thing, because we know they played it in A&M last year because of COVID stuff. If they had, and I know Hunter talked about that, but if they had figured that out, hey, we'll play in College Station this past year, we'll play in Fayetteville, and then we'll go back to Jerry World. There's no doubt in my mind that they win that game. Like you said, that atmosphere might even be better than it was Saturday night.
I think so, particularly if you had a night game again. Now, it's going to be 2:30 as we know now based on yesterday, and that would mean perhaps maybe by the end of the month the heat won't be as bad. We'll see that, but I think the heat kept some people away. COVID kept some people away from the Texas game and kept it maybe from being the all-time record crowd you were thinking the new North End Zone would provide for you. But I think with Arkansas being what should be a 3-0 team, 2 ranked teams, I think absolutely you could you could expect a larger crowd and just as crazy an atmosphere for a 2:30 ball game.
We're going through our game plan for 2 weeks from now because my friend and I are going to be driving up to Kansas City, thanks to David in South Arkansas, getting to see the Chiefs take on the Chargers, 12 o'clock in Arrowhead. And our plan is I'll be doing the pregame that day, and then we'll be watching with the Kansas City Arkansas alumni group at a restaurant and a bar down there. And one of the things I've talked with Trey Biddy of Hog Sports about is he maintains the best atmosphere that he's ever seen is the fourth quarter of the Arkansas-Ohio State game. I think the best one that he's ever seen. I think, Tommy, this Arkansas-Texas game, I don't know if it's going to rival that, but you are going to see an electrically charged up but here's what you don't want to happen. You don't want, because if you go back to 2016, Arkansas beats TCU in, I think, week 2, right? On the road. Okay. They beat and then we saw them lose to Texas A&M. I don't think it was the following week, but 2 weeks later. You want Arkansas to win the state of Texas. You want to beat Texas. You want to beat A&M. That's a lot easier said than done, but I mean, the way they played against Texas, if they play any resemblance against that and Texas A&M plays like any resemblance as they did against Colorado, you're going to win that football game and break that streak.
And don't leave Rice out. You beat them too, so that would help your Texas State championship cause too. You got 2 of the legs down right now, but you know that if that game was at home, the recruiting atmosphere that it would create, the official visits you'd have on campus. So I think if you had to do it over now, you would fight to maybe even extend that contract out, push it back another year with the arrangement with the Jones family. I think Arkansas's mindset back then was, hey, let's just go ahead and get this thing over with. I think that's the idea right now is you got to get so many games off this contract so you can get that behind you and move on and get this series back home and home. But
is that the only thing people are mad at Hunter Yurachek for since his arrival to Arkansas?
I haven't heard anyone mad at him about it, but I think more people are mad about the baseball situation right now than they are anything with the increased donation requirement to keep those prime seats over there. But and I think this Texas win glosses a lot of that over right now. But I hadn't heard anyone mad about it. I just think if you had it to do over, if you had a mulligan on this deal, maybe you would have fought a little more with Ross Bjork and Texas A&M. Nope, you're coming to our place. We're going to even this up, and then we'll push the whole thing back in Arlington one more year. But, hindsight's always 20/20.
Charlie in Camden, he's got a comment on the Texas game. Charlie, you're on the Morning Rush.
What's going on, guys? Listen, I called in last week talking about, if we could even up or win the line of scrimmage against Texas, we would have a chance. And boy, did we ever. I was surprised that we just absolutely imposed our will on them and whipped them the way we did. I think we wore them down. And I don't care who was back there at running back, the way we were blocking, it was special just to see. And I talked about our size a little bit and how much bigger we are compared to, when Morris was here. And it's just crazy when you look up front, even on the D-line. I mean, listen, defensive line, we're coming out running we ran a 3-2-6 the entire game. And for us to be able to stop the run the way we did, considering the type of defense, I mean, you look at that as an offensive coordinator, you're going, okay, I got to be able to run at this, or I got to be able to, I got to be able to check the ball underneath at this. For us to be able to run the football and get the amount of pressure, it's hard to get pressure when you're rushing just 3 people. And then send an occasional blitz here or there. It was just impressive. And, as far as KJ goes, that interception was just a great play by the defender. But I do one thing, maybe they need to try to get him. I feel like he tries to throw that thing as hard as he can. Maybe if he puts a little touch on that, it's a touchdown for sure. But I'm not going to blame him for that interception. I think, that's the right read. He read the safety coming down, and that's the hole right behind it. That's an RPO play, and he hit that at 6. And same thing with Burks in the corner of the end zone. He rolled out. I think he threw, if you put a little bit more air under that, I think he tries to throw it as hard as he can. We know he's got an arm. That's not the problem. But, hopefully he gets a little bit better as far as just throwing with a little bit more touch. He'll get better. I'm not worried about KJ. I thought he played a great game. He managed the game, other than the turnover. I mean, that turnover again, like I said, was just a great play by the defender. Overall, I'm really pleased. And Sam was talking about it yesterday. For them to put some time in, during camp, preparing for this Georgia Southern team, that shows you how prepared, much more prepared they are. It is hard to prepare for the triple option.
Yeah, it's Charlie, appreciate the call. It's not easy to prepare for the triple option. And one thing you can say about this team, go back and watch. I did this yesterday. Go back and watch that game. Hayden Henry, bumper pull, Grant Morgan. They knew where the ball was going before the snap, and they just beat the offensive lineman to the spot and blew it up. And give credit to the 3 guys up front holding up their end of the bargain, because that's why the linebackers roam free a lot of the time, Tommy.
Try the new Bud Light Seltzer Lemonade. The taste of sweet lemonade meets the refreshment of a hard seltzer. Original black cherry, strawberry, and peach lemonade. The new Bud Light Seltzer Lemonade.
They just threw him out of the game. He's gotten his second technical, and he's been thrown out of the ball game.
Touchdown, Arkansas!
Arkansas wins a national championship! The Arkansas Razorbacks have completed the dream season!
This is your Hog Update on the Morning Rush. Brought to you by Mr. Sparky. Need a licensed electrician to service your home? For one of their local pros, call 888-8-SPARKY.
Arkansas was fined $100,000 from the Southeastern Conference for rushing the field. This was their second violation because they did it back in 2014 against the LSU Tigers. Now, this money is going to the SEC Postgraduate Scholarship Fund, a fund that Tommy, myself, Drew, were unaware of until yesterday, until I found it. But
I just thought it went to Greg Sankey's cigar box.
I did too. But worth every penny is what I saw from most Razorback fans. Now, if they do it again, it's going to be a fine of $250,000. That's when it looks at.
Well,
where's the article that you read about the?
That's where way back. I think they upped them. I mean, when I read it way back when, I think it was much lower. But I thought it reset after some time. I was wrong about that. But because Arkansas hadn't stormed the field in a long time,
7 years. So, yeah.
Yeah, hey, and everyone has this opinion because none of us are writing the check. Hey, it's worth it. $100,000, it was worth it. It's easy when you're not the one writing the check. But I thought the video that came out of Hunter Yurachek said, "Hey, let them go. Just make sure no one gets hurt." That's the kind of AD you want. Fans needed that moment, and I just think the marketing images, Clay, of the field being filled with Razorback fans like that, calling the Hogs, having a jubilant time. It was worth the $100,000 for the university just to have those images.
Well, it's just the pin-up frustration, and I think reduced crowds, everything that happened of late. Whether it be the Chad Morris era, you just go back, over a decade of just misery. You get a game like that, let's go do it.
That's who ought to be paying the fine. It shouldn't be the university. It should be Chad Morris and Brett Bielema. They ought to go halfers on this thing.
Yeah,
Texas chip in.
No.
Texas has the money.
Texas provided the opportunity for this. Clay's right.
Texas was paid entertainment,
right?
No question.
The reason we had to rush the field as Razorback fans is because everything that the end of the Bielema era and the entire Chad Morris era did to us as a fan base. So that's who should pay this fine. That's whose fault this is. It's Chad Morris's fault.
Want to get Jimmy Sexton on the phone and see if we can work out a deal?
I don't think Jimmy Sexton would take him as a client.
Does he represent Bielema? I know he doesn't represent Morris.
I think Bielema had his own attorney. So
no, Bielema did not have Sexton.
Okay.
No.
All right, well, moving on, SEC announcements were made. SEC Defensive Player of the Week with Mr. Hayden Henry, and then, let's see, the Cam. Sorry, didn't mean to say Mr. Clay.
Just keep rolling.
And then Cam Little was the Freshman of the Week as he goes 4 for 4. He is the first freshman kicker to make 4 field goals in a game since Alex Tejada did back in 2007. It's tied for the third most in Razorback single game history.
I heard Chuck say this to Coach on the TV show. He's the first Razorback kicker to make 4 against Texas, though. So no one's ever had 4 field goals against Texas before, Clay.
So we put him in a little special category all to himself. Mm-hmm. And I think we also, every time we mention kickers in this game, we need to mention Vito Calvarusa.
Uh-huh.
His kickoffs, not only were they deep, but the hang time was incredible. And I thought that was as big a part of the game as field position. And it was a thing of beauty. It didn't matter which way he was kicking. Didn't matter what the wind was. He put him deep.
Not into the end zone, out of the end zone.
Yeah, he was spectacular, and that is underrated, and it is so good to see. I promise you, as that ball's in the air, Barry Odom is like, all right, I can set my defense. It's going to be inside the 20 right here, or if they return it, if they don't, it's 25. None of those were even close to a sideline. Those out of bound kicks just made me want to just cringe.
9 kickoffs, which is a thing of beauty in itself, and 7 of those were touchbacks.
Yep. Yeah, he's top flight. So Scott Fountain in the offseason has gotten the kicking game back to where you need it to be.
The Football Writers Association of America, which Clay is a part of, named Arkansas as its Cheez-It Bowl National Team of the Week. They hadn't been that since 2016. It's the fourth time in their history that this has happened for the Hogs. Georgia Southern, they opened up as an 18-point underdog. It's now moved to 23.5 for all you gambling addicts out there. That's the line right now for Arkansas. So I would hope you'd get it at minus 18 rather than plus 8 or minus 23.5 because it's moved 5.5 points since it opened.
Boy, that doesn't matter. Hopefully you can cover both of those.
You smash them both ways.
Maybe both together. I think that's getting greedy, but yeah, hopefully you have no issue with either one of those numbers.
The SEC office reported yesterday that Arkansas Texas A&M is the 2:30 CBS game this next week. I don't know if you saw the video I put out, but there's that video of Shaquille O'Neal and his sons dancing, and they put the SEC on CBS music underneath it. It's absolutely glorious, but a big-time game next week for the Arkansas Razorbacks. Once again, they find themselves in not the most marquee game like they were on ESPN, but, I mean, it doesn't get much better than the SEC on CBS with Nessler and Danielson.
No, you need, it's good to be back in primetime and not have to wait till the Missouri game to get there, and you've earned your way there. So it's best game of the week, and, Clay, seems like for years now, CBS has tried to avoid Arkansas at all costs, and now they're plugging them in early in the schedule.
Yeah, this game will have bowl implications. Arkansas wins. You have that little check mark when the better bowls are handed out. That's how you get those games, is that you win the head-to-head matchups with the teams that will be considered. And I'm sure Texas A&M will have a good season. But if you beat these guys this week, you or 2 weeks, you've got some power when it comes to bowl season. So it's that's stuff that we didn't even consider a few years ago. What a win in a certain situation means in December.
Could mean Florida on the line. So.
No question.
Yeah.
Nick Smith has narrowed his list down to Arkansas, Auburn, Alabama, and UAPB. He told Soccerizers. Now, he still hasn't figured out when he's going to commit, but the number one recruit in your state, according to 24/7 Sports, 5-star, top 20 overall in the class of 2022, liked what he saw at his official visit to the Razorbacks this weekend. Speaking of recruiting, Arkansas offered Kane Archer, Greenwood quarterback, class of 2026 last night. He is the youngest football player ever inside the state, outside of the state, that the Razorbacks, or is it just in-state?
The way I had to go back to get the graphic, the youngest player Arkansas has ever offered, and I believe what you said, the youngest player in the state of Arkansas.
Okay, so not outside the state,
right.
Just inside the state.
Right.
So
but the youngest one the Razorbacks have ever offered.
So this is a big time deal. He's an 8th grader playing up on the 9th grade team now. He's the number one quarterback in that class. He has offers to both the Michigan Wolverines and the Missouri Tigers, and now he finds himself with an Arkansas offer as well.
So me and you and Drew were all watching Monday Night Football with some friends of ours, and his dad and his older brother were there, and y'all just left at halftime, and his dad got a phone call and stepped outside, came back in, and said, "Hey, I got to get home because the Arkansas coaches are wanting to do a FaceTime at 10:30 or a little bit later tonight with us." So, I mean, they felt like that was coming. They were hoping that was going to happen Texas night, but things just got so busy following that Texas game that the coaches didn't have time to visit. So, pretty interesting how all that unfolded. They thought it might be at the Texas game, and it ended up unfolding last night.
Pittman did not go to bed until 4:30 the next morning. That's what he told the Arkansas media yesterday. So he did not get a lot of sleep, and my guess is they took it late into the night.
Have you tried Benville Brewing's new Space Goose Hazy India Pale Ale? It's handcrafted in Arkansas. You'll taste the great tropical citrus, including the passion fruit, the guava, and pineapple. It's creamy, zingy, and zows the taste buds. It's weird, wonderful, and wacky all at the same time. Try the new Space Goose Hazy India Pale Ale from Benville Brewing.
I do want to welcome in Steven in Nashville, who's been patiently waiting for almost 30 minutes. Steven, thanks for holding on. Welcome into the Morning Rush.
Thank you for taking my call. Arkansas did really good. There's one thing I kept noticing in the game, and I hated to notice it because I thought we had it fixed between the Rice game and the Texas game. But to be honest with you, I love the Hogs, but there was a lot of calls that could have got called for helmet-to-helmet or late hit on the quarterback, and Arkansas got lucky and didn't get them called. And we already had 2 suspended from the first game, and I was hoping it got fixed. But there were several calls in this game that I was getting itchy because, I mean, the referee could have called it helmet-to-helmet or late hit on the quarterback. And I just want to know if y'all noticed it and what y'all thought about it. The rest of the game was awesome, but it's just if we get a different referee, we may get a couple more suspended if we don't get it fixed.
Steven, appreciate the call. Well, lucky enough, Bob Bowlesby instructed his officials before the game to screw over Texas in any way, shape, or form. So that helped Arkansas, and it's about time you got some help from the officials when it came to a football, basketball, or baseball game. So that's why those calls weren't made. Now, the calls that you're probably discussing is there was a late hit on, I can't remember if it was Carter Thompson that was called, but the two that you're probably thinking of is the 4th and 1 Hayden Henry hit on Bijan Robinson, and then the 4th and goal Jackson Woodard and Thompson. And those are probably the two think that he's talking about.
Yeah.
Tommy.
Threshold, what they consider to be targeting is different than the SEC, at least based on those two calls. And when the goal line play, their late goes to review, I mean, to me, that looked like a pretty clear-cut targeting play with Woodard that in the SEC is routinely called, and the Big 12 crew with a clear look at it in replay doesn't, put that under review. So I think that's the issue, is in one league that's not targeting, in one league it is, and there maybe needs to be more of a national standard for what targeting is or isn't.
Yeah, the interesting aspect about that is, yes, it was a Big 12 crew. Not only was it a Big 12 crew, it was their number one crew.
Correct. Worked the national championship
Cruz
game.
Worked the national championship.
Brandon Cruz.
They worked Maryland, the week before and didn't call any penalties. I mean, it's like there were There were 4 on Arkansas, 4 on Texas in that game. They let you play. And I saw, what I thought were pass interference and other things. They're just not going to call it. They're going to let you play. They did not call holding in the game. Whether there was some on both sides that, you probably could say, yeah. But that's a crew that they're known for. We're going to let you play. I mean, we're going to, and I guess that they don't call much targeting. That crew doesn't. So
but
whatever.
Even the replay official was also Big 12.
He could have called it if he wanted to. Right.
I think it was there, but I think that's probably the frustrating issue, and it worked out well for Arkansas. But you see that and you wonder, and I think Stephen's question is, is there some corrective measures on Arkansas' side from a coaching standpoint from one week to the next, and is it an issue they're taking seriously? Because I'm of the belief if an SEC crew's working the game this week, which they will be, and those same plays happen or similar contact happens, you may be subject to penalty.
Yeah, and I think you're going to have targeting called all year on different teams. No, I don't mean, say Arkansas is going to have a bunch, but I think when I watch football, I see targeting.
Yep.
I mean, it's not going to go away. You can say all you want to about coach this, coach that. When a defensive player comes in hard, instinctively they lower their helmet. Mm-hmm. And it is in every phase of football that you want to watch. I watched the Monday night game, and I saw that. In the helmet is lowered. It doesn't always hit another helmet, but it will, because you cannot see where you're going when you lower your helmet. It's just not there. It's that simple.
Clay, you also saw something similar and heard something similar to what I heard on Saturday night. And it was funny. You a lot of times will have serious pieces and you'll have funny pieces, but I laughed out loud reading your piece last night. One, because you mentioned co-eds in this piece, what I always find funny, but the same phrase that you didn't type out in your article, but blank Texas, as you're walking out of the press box and what did you leave, like 12? About 12
midnight.
Midnight, and you're walking out, and you step outside of the press box, and you're about to walk to your car, and you see this white Lexus go by, some girls are hanging out of the sunroof, and you just hear one phrase, blank Texas. And I heard that phrase. I'm not kidding when I tell you this. Every Texas fan that walked by me, there was an Arkansas fan that would say the exact same thing to them. And what it shows is there is a disdain and a hatred, not just from the older fans, but a lot of the younger fans had that same thing, not just Saturday night, but are going to have it as long as this rivalry keeps on going, which we know with the Longhorns joining the SEC.
Yeah, it was, it was really interesting in that, I'm walking up, here's this old guy walking up the sidewalk, and these girls, they're hanging out the top of the sunroof, 4 downward horn signs to me, and then that phrase. And I just smiled. It's like, y'all have fun, ladies.
Hopefully your driver's sober. That's what you're probably thinking.
I don't know that anybody was sober in that vehicle.
Well, so hopefully they got home safe. But
yep.
Something, Clay, that I know a reader of yours mentioned, and I hadn't really thought about it until they said, we've always had this idea that Arkansas kids that play at the University of Arkansas, football, basketball, and baseball, when they get to play Texas, if they're from Texas, they really want to beat the Longhorns. They have a friend, they have a family member, they have a coworker, or they have a bunch of them that are big-time Texas fans. But what was also addressed by one of your readers is a lot of the students, and I don't know what percentage is now, I think it's around 60, 65, are Texas kids. And some of them grew up wanting to go to the University of Texas, and they were shunned because of the percentile that only Texas allows the top, I can't remember if it's 10 or 6%. And when they come to Arkansas, they realize how much Texas hatred there is. And so that just kind of snowballs into not just an athlete thing, but students at the U of A as well.
Well, there isn't any question that is the case. And it's the case all across other Texas schools the same way.
Yep.
And they have that feeling at Ole Miss too. Ole Miss will play. They've got a lot of Texas students, that go to school there because they can't get in University of Texas or Texas A&M. Now, Texas A&M is not easy to get into either, but it's it just seems to come out more when you play Texas. And I think there's no doubt that part of the student population is inspired when the Longhorns came to town.
And it wasn't just students, Tommy, that were, I mean, you go younger than that. You saw kids. I know you brought Dylan, who's 11. Mm-hmm. There were several kids that I saw in attendance that were younger. Now, those kids weren't saying the same phrase that those co-eds were saying, and thank goodness, because we don't need kids cursing when they're 5 or 6 years old. But I saw kids 4, 5, 6, 7 that were walking around the stadium pre, post, during doing the horns down, and I'm thinking, what a beautiful sight we have in front of us.
It's our duty.
Our civic duty.
It's our duty. It's our parental duty to teach our children the proper way and proper horn hatred. So, I mean, we worked on it all week long at the house, horns down. We had drills. We did agility, so all with horns down. We recreated the Matt Jones play, going to the goal line with football in one hand, horns down. I mean, you have to work on these things to teach your children how to properly hate a rival. So, I mean, it's our duty as people in our 30s and 40s and 50s to teach our children and our grandchildren, Clay, how to properly hate the horns with horns down.
No, so many of my colleagues have said, that is lost. It's, we've got a 30-year gap here that our people don't understand, the young people. I never worried. I never once fretted that this would going to be a problem in this game.
But the fact that Texas is coming back on your schedule at some point in the near future, the fact that to me was the motivation to teach Dylan hatred for the Texas Longhorns, is he's going to need this valuable resource in his life moving forward. He'll never make it through high school without this life skill. So, I mean, it was very important in this important crossroad and juncture in his lifetime to teach him this life skill. I mean, it's like balancing a checkbook. It's horns down and balancing the checkbook. You've got to know how to reconcile the interest each month right into the checking account. You got to know how to put horns down and hate the horns. I mean, it's a life skill.
And horns down is far more important than the checkbook.
Exactly. I mean, if you bounce a check here and there, I mean, Arvest will help you out. But I mean, these are things that as parents we must provide. If you don't, maybe DHS ought to be knocking on your door and figuring out what's going on in your household.
Yeah. Real quick before we shift
Preach it, brother.
Before we shift it up and we talk about Grant Morgan's status, we'll hear from Coach Pittman coming up. We don't need this. Justin texted. He said, literally saw a U of A student look a 7-year-old Texas fan in the eye and say, bleep Texas. Let's not.
Well, let's draw a line.
Kids, you can say, I think you could say, I'm not advocating for swearing at someone, but let's keep it 18 and up if you're going to converse with the Texas fan.
Well, and
anything below that's a little petty.
Okay, but let me go. You got time for a quick story? Because
the Saturday
night. Here's what happens, Clay. I'm enjoying this moment, father and son memory. I'll never forget it. I hope Dylan never forgets this first game he attends. And we've had a wonderful time. There's some Texas fans sitting right behind us. They've been fine. They've left us alone. For the most part, they took their butt whooping. But we get late in the game and Texas scores that last touchdown. And like a son that I'm very proud, he stands up and he gives horns down when they score. Well,
when Texas or Arkansas scores?
When Texas scores, Dylan boos and gives horns down.
Oh.
Well, this jackwagon behind us in burnt orange pokes my son on the shoulder, my 11-year-old son, and says, you need to learn to be more respectful. Cheer for your team, not against the other. Well, that set me off. I mean, don't touch don't put your Longhorn hands on my kid. I mean, I don't know who you think you are, but don't do that. So we exchanged some words there that were pretty sharp with each other, but just the goal of these people to think that, well, he needs to learn some respect was his words. I think he's 11. He'll do what he wants. It's not your business. We nearly got into it up there in section 123 over him worried about what an 11-year-old's doing. That's how butthurt these people get over this stuff. It's amazing. It's amazing how thin-skinned these Texas people are. It's unbelievable. The gall they have. Oh.
It's a good time for this song.
Oh.
I'm a short squad Texan. I met the Razorbacks today.
I think I met that guy on Saturday. Unbelievable.
I'm a short squash Texan. I met the Razorback today. Now people look at me and say, that's why you look that way.
Oh, what a great song. What a fantastic song.
I wasn't too worried about it. I knew if I ended up on the wrong side of the iron bars, you and Clay to come got me, right?
Yeah, well, and I think there
Tuesday,
also there's plenty of people that would come to your aid.
Oh, yeah.
After you'd smacked him a couple of times.
Clay, I'm going to be honest. You should be proud of me. I did the smart thing. Ubers were $140 that night.
Whoa! Where were you going?
From Dixon, 2 miles off campus. And the Uber search, whatever.
I'm in the wrong business.
I had 2 beers and I drove home. I was just like, there's no way on God's green earth I'm paying that much money. So I didn't get ripped that night, Clay. I was very cordial with every Texas fan I ran into, but I would have. You should have brought me in there drunk next to the Texas fans, because if they would have if I would have seen them.
Listen, I may have gotten my tail whipped. Now, this guy wasn't even bigger than me, so I mean, I ain't got to hold him on with him, but. I wasn't. You're not going to mess with my kid. I mean, you're just not going to do it. You know, there is a place where you draw the line.
Dylan's basically my godson, so I would have had to step in. And
but listen, we came back and we found a local spot, had a little breakfast before we went home. You know, a little celebratory eggs and bacon before we went. And the place we chose, a lot of Texas fans came to Fort Smith and got a hotel because it's easier for them and probably didn't have a 2-night minimum and all that stuff. And the ones I encountered in there were fine. They were nice and they were complimentary. Hey, y'all just kicked our tail tonight. You know,
Gary
we got a lot of things.
The parent of the year.
Well,
Tommy.
I mean, listen, if you don't teach your children, and if we weren't going to have Texas on the schedule every year, I think some of these life lessons wouldn't be as valuable. But listen, every year starting in 2020, if I don't teach Dylan, then how's he going to teach his kids?
Are
we going to leave this up to the educational system in Arkansas to get done? I don't think so. I mean,
I got an email.
I mean, it's up to us as parents.
I got an email, probably from a Texas fan, that I should be ashamed of myself for preaching hate. That you're a cult leader and you're stirring up the cult. And I just emailed back, thank you very much.
Well,
me a cult leader, right? Yeah.
Well, if you find yourself on the wrong side of the law because you get into it with a Texas fan, call our friends Kevin Hickey or Brad Hall. They can help you through these kind of matters. And seriously,
wow, that's a transition.
Well, I'm telling you, hey, that's why they pay me the big dollars to take care of these things right here.
Yeah.
They know how to get you out of the pokey when you've gotten into it with some Texas fans. Check them out there in Fort Smith. You can call them there whether you're building a home and you got a problem there, going through a divorce, whether it's a contract issue, or you've gotten into it with a Texas fan at the game. They can walk you through those issues. Brad Hull, Kevin Hickey. They also have a brand new podcast at hitthatline.com. It's called Coffee with Counsel. A lot of great issues there that I think dads would really enjoy, involving custody, paternity, and many other issues as well. 479-434-2414 in the River Valley. 479-802-6560 in Northwest Arkansas. Or find them both on the web at artriallawyers.com.
I don't know how he's going to be, to be honest with you. He's tough. I expect him to go out to practice today and do what he can do, but I think he's still a little bit more day by day. We'll know a little bit more about him, how he feels at practice today as soon as practice is over.
So that was Coach Pittman yesterday around 12 o'clock telling us the status of Grant Morgan, your All-American linebacker, who left, leaving the third or fourth. I can't remember when he was, I think it was the fourth quarter when he was helped off the sidelines. It looked like it's still with something with his knee, but he's acting like it's okay. And I heard someone sitting next to me at the game, and they just said this quote: "He's a Morgan, he'll be fine." Now, if there's anyone that can play through an injury, it's Grant or Drew Morgan, that we've seen the durability throughout their career.
And as we were pointing out earlier, you look at any of the, there's videos on social media, the post-game celebrations. He was on the field with his wife. I believe her name is Sydney. You saw the locker room video that was posted on the Arkansas Razorbacks Twitter account. He was hugging Coach Pittman. So, Clay, he may be limited some this week, but this doesn't appear, at least based on that this is some kind of serious long-term problem.
Well, the good news is that they've got some depth at linebacker, and this might be a good week to let those guys play and let Grant rest it.
Absolutely.
And that's not what he'll want to do.
No.
That's not Grant Morgan. That's not Drew Morgan. That's not Matt Morgan. It's like if there's a game to be played, I'm going to play in it. But I think that I don't think it's a serious injury, but sometimes that swelling lingers for a while, and that'll be the issue.
Something to keep an eye on his status. Outside of that, was there anyone else that
he ought to pull a Sam Pittman's? What he ought to do? He ought to just sit over on the bench and drink some cold silver bullets on the bench. You think that'd work?
I think Coach might be a little. Well, Coach, I'm just doing.
Coach, I'm just following your example.
Just following what you did.
I wasn't going to get in the game. I got a little problem over here with a knee. You just drink some silver bullets on the bench.
I think that might cause a stir. Can you imagine the social media memes that would come out if we saw Grant Morgan sucking
not
down
the official
a cold
beer
one?
of the Razorbacks. That would be the problem.
That would be
right?
no. So I guess Coach can only get mad at him if he wasn't sucking down a Razorback Bud Light.
Right.
If it was that, then Coach wouldn't have anything to say because it's a sponsor.
Right.
Oh my gosh! I think if Bud Light saw Grant Morgan drinking one of their beers on the sideline, they might have a conniption. They would be so ecstatic, so happy. I don't anticipate that. I mean, number one, because I think Grant's going to play. Number two, I don't think that beer makes its way to Razorback games very often. There was
and the Igloo cooler. You got to have the Igloo cooler like he had at Pitt State. That would top it off.
There was Fireball on the. There's these mini bottles of Fireball because when you go to Razorback Stadium, if you want to sneak in alcohol, you can sneak in alcohol. So there was little bottles of Fireball on the field following the LSU win in 2014. I didn't get in the center of the field, Tommy, so I don't know what bottles of alcohol were in the center of the field this past Saturday. But my guess is there was a couple alcoholic bottles that made their way on Frank Broyles Field.
This podcast has been presented by Bet Online.
Subscribe to the Hit That Line Podcast Network, the best podcast in the Natty State. Just search Hit That Line wherever you listen to podcasts. Brought to you by Breeden RV Center.